working on it and we'll be back up and running as soon as possible. And we do apologize, Wendy, and he has VM on camera with him. I think he's headed down south. I think I just heard lions calling off to the west of me. But first I just want to check all along the western boundary of Djuma and see if we can follow up on young Madiba. Now, for those of you who might have missed the whole saga, young Madiba is a leopard cub. He's just over a year old now, and he unfortunately got hold of a stray dog who'd wandered in from outside of the Sabi Sands, and we're desperately trying to find him so that the Sabi Sands management can give him a sort of an anti-rabies shot, so a rabies vaccine. We just want to see if we can grab him and follow up with that. And all it is just a quick dart into the muscle of the bottom or the shoulder, and then he'll be good to go, and then he'll get one more in 21 days time. Now, I think without further ado, since we have spent quite a bit of time watching this spectacular sunrise, and it was a really beautiful sunrise this morning, I hope that some of you got to see it, I think that it's time for us to head out and see what we can see. Also here, the impala, they're in high spirits this morning. A couple of rams playing around, and I'm going to try and sneak up towards them, see if we can catch some of their play fighting. And I will be heading across in that direction a little bit later. I do want to just focus on Madiba first, and then head across and see which lions have moved that way. Now, last we heard, for those of you who might have missed the updates, the Birmingham boys are north in Buffelshoek, so I'm not too sure which lions are calling on that side. Be interesting to go and find out. Most of the impala have settled down and moved off, but we've still got this young ram. And you'll notice there's been quite a colour change with the impala now as it starts to get warmer in the morning. Oh, I think I can hear lions again, but very far away. I'm just going to be quiet for a moment. Very, very far. They are around. Now, I mentioned that it is warmer this morning. Yesterday morning was 8 degrees centigrade. It is now 12 degrees. And I don't know, to me, Brian, feels much, much warmer. It's really nice, actually. I think it's going to be blazing hot, despite my dire predictions. Yesterday, with all of that wind blowing, VM and I decided that it was going to be absolutely freezing this morning. But luckily it hasn't been. And I think the end result of that is that it's going to be much, much warmer today. Now, I'd love to describe to you what I'm smelling at the moment, but unfortunately I'm not smelling very much. I sneezed about 20 times just before we started up our sunrise safari, and as a consequence I'm sure it smells beautiful and fresh and summery. So just imagine the fresh smell of grass and dirt and the start of some of the flowers, but that's about as far as I can tell you. Oh, and those impala are looking really beautiful in this morning light. But unfortunately we have a job to do and we're going to have to leave them. Well, not unfortunately, actually, it's quite exciting. Now, I said that I was going to go and look for young Madiba, and Lindsay, you were wondering if it has been confirmed whether or not that dog had rabies. So for those of you who might have missed it, once he was seen to have caught the stray dog, he was chased off the kill and the dog was taken to Ornisterpoort, which is a veterinary hospital, as well as the veterinary school in Pretoria, and it was tested. But no, Lindsay, the results haven't come back. It's just that the Sabi Sands management have decided to take a preemptive approach to just looking after him. And it is just a better safe than sorry scenario, because the longer you leave it, the more difficult it becomes to actually inoculate against rabies. So they just want to get it done regardless of whether the dog has rabies or not. I would say it's unlikely. I don't think it looked like that dog had rabies, but you just never know. Sometimes they don't show symptoms, and we'll just have to wait and see. But for now, the Sabi Sands just want to dart him.
To hyena.
To hyena? Where? Oh, the impala have spotted them. Oh, yes. Oof, let's try and get to them. They are bolting, though. Oh, hold on. Let me stop there, because maybe they changed direction. Well spotted, Brian. The impala don't seem to appreciate it. Let's try and stay with them. There they go. There's one. Tricky? Sure. I wonder what's happening there. We'll try and keep up with them and see which ones they are. It was very interesting. I wonder what they've been up to. Actually coming this way. Whatever they were doing, they definitely weren't hunting. So you could see that by the reactions of the impalas. They didn't seem terribly bothered. They moved away. They didn't come sprinting. There was no alarm calling. They're running along the western edge of quarantine, and they're actually giving us a really good demonstration of what makes hyenas so amazing. They can carry on like that for hours. It is almost a completely tireless stride. They're probably going, let's say, somewhere in the region of just under 20 kilometers, maybe 20 kilometers an hour at the moment. They can obviously up that by about double if they need to. This is just their relaxed canter. But they've already managed to leave me in their dust, so to speak. I wonder what this is about and where they're off to. They're heading in the direction of the old hyena den, but I doubt it's to do, or that they're going to head that way. Oh. Fast. Off onto a game path. I know this game path, they use it a lot. I've followed them along here before. They really are, they're moving so fast. Good job, Brian. Now this is really interesting, and this is one of the reasons why, although we know the leopards and the lions of the Sabi Sands so well, we actually don't know much about the hyenas that are around us all the time. And that's because they cover distances like this. You don't really find hyenas sleeping or lying down unless you're at a den site. Oh my word, I think we're going to lose them. Well, I'm certainly more awake now than I was earlier. Straight through the block towards Philippen's cut line. Road. I'd like to know, I'm really trying to stay with them just so that we can get an idea as to where they're off to. Now we've seen how fast we've been driving through the bush, and they're so far ahead of us. And as I said, they can maintain this speed for a long time. Far longer probably than Jigger could keep going. There we go, we're right at the entrance to the old hyena den. I'm going to stop here just so we can have a look at how fast they're moving. Isn't this interesting? Slowing down slightly. I wonder if that's where they're on their way to. Okay, let's catch up with them in case we lose them. Now Linda, welcome to the Sunrise Safari. You were wondering if we were near any hyena den, and yes we are. We're actually right where, when I first started working here in July, where the old active hyena den was. It then moved across to Gallagher shortcut to the north of us, and I would not be surprised, because they have moved once again. There's a possibility that they've moved back to this den site here. So I'm going to slow down slightly. I don't want to go rushing into an active den. Now unfortunately, if they don't stop here, it's going to be a bit more tricky to stay with them. And it doesn't look like they're going to. There's also no evidence of hyena at the den. It's not fresh. Stop here. Now, although I would love to follow them and see where they're going to go, I cannot go crashing through the bush after them, not in this thick block. First of all, we wouldn't be able to keep up with them, but we'd also actually probably scare them with all of the crashing and the bagging. So they were fine with our presence behind them in that open area, but if we started scraping through the monkey orange, which is essentially a thicket in front of me, we are going to scare them off, I think. But that was really interesting. I wonder where they're off to. Well, it was a really exciting way and a very unexpected way to start the morning. So well done, Brian, for spotting those spotted hyenas dashing across the screen. And yes, thank you, Charlie. I managed to miss all of the aardvark holes this time around. I seem to have learned my lesson, but you never know. Now, after our exhilarating hyena chase through the bush, I believe that James is out and about and ready to update you as to what he's been doing. So we'll head across to him, and I will catch up with you a little bit later.
3, 2, 1. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Wendy here in the magnificent sunrise of Africa that is now warming my face. It has been a stunning start to the morning. Obviously the radio communications, as you can see from my little radio, are not what they should be, so should your questions, because you are on a live safari, not be answered correctly, or answered or asked in a timeous fashion, that is because of our communications. So hashtag Safari Live if you want to ask us questions at WildEarthTV if you want to get hold of us. Very nice to hear from you always. So please do not be afraid, especially if you're perhaps a new viewer and you're a little scared of being pilloried for some sort of what you might perceive to be a stupid question. Please don't fear. There are no stupid questions. There are plenty of stupid answers, many of which I've given myself, but there are no stupid questions. So please fire them through to us at will, and I will do my best to answer them. And if I can't answer them, I'm sure somebody clever on the Twitterverse will be able to. My name is James Henry. Behind me today I have Viam on camera. He has returned from leave. Obviously he was there yesterday afternoon, not with me. It's very nice to have him back on board. He seems not to have brought a picnic with him today. Did you bring a picnic today? Oh, one banana. Shame. He's going to be absolutely ravenous come 9 o'clock this morning. And it's been an excellent start with Jamie and some hyenas earlier today. So our plan, we're not too far actually from where Jamie was. We're going to head towards the south and then the east, see if we can pick up on some lion tracks. I'd really like to see a lion. It's been some time since I saw one. The Birmingham males at the moment are feeding on a buffalo carcass, that was killed I think 2 days ago on Biffel's Hook, and fascinating stuff. I'm not sure if Jamie told you or not. Last night and yesterday afternoon they were interacting with what seems to be one of the Nkuhuma lionesses. Now, it was really interesting to see. We saw some video of it yesterday evening from one of the landowners at Biffel's Hook, and what she was doing is going up towards the lions and rolling around and almost flirting with them in the way that they do before they mate. And the males were not interested. They would watch her come and then they would chase her, and watch her come and then they would chase her. Not wholeheartedly, they'd let her go, but she'd run away and then they'd leave her, and then she'd come back again and roll around in front of them and display, and they would then eventually chase her off again. And what it looked to me like was that she was trying to placate them. She was trying desperately to get into their good books, and that seems to be the way these things happen. So she is trying to avoid any further conflict with the Birmingham males, and obviously there has been a huge amount of conflict. They've killed 3 of the lionesses from that pride since I've been here, so a bit distressing in that way, but that's what we think's going on. I don't know where the rest of the pride is, we don't know where Junior is, we don't know where the young lionesses, so it's all rather interesting. So I think without further ado, it's going to be a hot one today. We're going to head off towards the east of the property and see if we can't find some other lion tracks coming in. You see that hat change, yeah? It was a very skilled hat change that avoided my boiled spot being obvious. Now there's no lion tracks coming onto the reserve at the moment, but as always it's a beautiful fresh morning when nobody's been driving around, which means that we have the tracks to ourselves, which is a wonderful way to be. Now that sound that you can hear is the game drive radio, and that I'm afraid is going to be in live communication with us today, so I'm sorry about that. It may disturb the peace slightly, but it is very important to our task. On we go without further ado. I think it's going to be very warm today. I woke up this morning without the normal chill of the dawn, certainly nothing like it was yesterday. And Viam was just saying already the light is kind of overexposed, and that kind of white haziness of this time of the year is filling up the sky. Then of course update on young Madiba, and we went looking for him yesterday. We found his tracks heading very close towards the northern side of the Sabi Sands, towards one of the gates, very close to, not too far from where our camp is, about 2.5 kilometers to the north of that, and there was no further sign of him, so we're not really sure where he is. Obviously he was on a main access road, so the tracks disappear very quickly. But we are going to continue to look for him over the course of the next few days, just so that we can keep track on the progress of his rather tumultuous life. There is an impala there. So Mary in Michigan, as we look at that impala where there's lots of dust, beautiful dust there, you want to know, I'd mentioned the other day that there was a second mating season for impala, and you want to know if that's why the males would be fighting. Yeah, just look over at that one there, who's now turned his face from us because he's nasty. Look at his face there, Marianne. I think the dust in the air here and that slight injury to his face, I don't know if you can see it, just under his eye he's got some marking. I think that's from a fight. Marianne, I think that's exactly what's going on. The reason they're fighting is because of the secondary breeding season. It's a very, it's not as nearly as distinct. Can you see that injury there, Marianne? It's not nearly as distinct as the May breeding. Look at the beautiful colors. Gee, that's lovely. Not nearly as distinct as the May breeding, but it does happen round about now, and I think that's exactly why you'll see one or two of the males fighting. Stunning, Viam. Very artistic. In a lovely way, that new grass, that precious new grass, is shining in the light of this marvelous dawn. Trying to get a question through. I was just athletically getting out of the way there. A question about the black thing. I'm going to get the question again. Hang on a second. Oh, there we go. Okay. So a question about the black gland on the fetlock joint. Now the fetlock joint is the joint that is on the, I'm just going to sneak forward while I answer this question. The fetlock joint is the one, it basically looks like an ankle. It's not the equivalent of the ankle, but it looks like an ankle. It's actually the equivalent of, I think, the metatarsal joint, metacarpal joint. I think that would be the correct anatomical way of describing it. But if you look just above the back ankle, for want of a better term, it's called a fetlock, and that fetlock joint has got a gland in it, surrounded by that tuft of black hair, and the gland is used for scent marking. They spray pheromones out of that gland when they're running away from animals, and that's often why you see impala kicking their back legs out while they run. And what that does is allow them to follow each other as they charge away from various predators, because of course they are the number one thing to eat out here if you happen to be in the top 5 predators. That's because they're ideal size. They're not too big and not too small. They're still a good meal for a lion. They're perfectly within the size limit for a cheetah and a leopard, and of course hyena and wild dog definitely find impala a very tasty morsel indeed. And we were chatting a little bit about mating with Marianne now, and the new lambs will be dropped in November, and when that happens it will just be a feast day, a feast month out here. All the predators will absolutely devour all of those little babies, which is a bit sad for the babies, but very nice for the predators. And for about, what is it, it's about 50% of those babies won't make it through their first year, which is a bit sad, but the predators really do relish the time. And I think that there is, you will read that leopard are not seasonal breeders, but certainly here we've seen so much mating in the last little while, which would indicate that there will be new cubs come December time, which is when all the young impala are around. I suspect that there may well be some kind of timing involved with the estrus periods that we've seen recently with the leopards around here. Alright, I think let's carry on. It's a very peaceful, marvellous morning. Anna-Marie, you have very correctly surmised or picked up that despite the fact that we have had that new rain and it has been most appreciated, it's now almost 2 weeks, no it's not, it's about a week and a half ago, 10 days ago that we had that rain, and all the dust stopped and everything became crispy and clear, and you say you can now start to see dust starting to build again. Anna-Marie, you're absolutely right. It will start to get dusty, and you know, if we don't get further rains, which is, well, I mean, those rains that we have are pretty early and pretty unlikely. If we don't have further rains, then what's going to happen is that it will become very dry and dusty again. just pulled off the road to get out of the way of another game drive vehicle. There we go. It's from Arakusa. We'll now get back onto the road here. I'm just desperately sorry to have disappointed you, Maggie, in Australia, that I didn't give the fashion report on what VM was wearing today. I will do that for you now. VM is dressed in sort of bush chic, I suppose you would say, with a heavy pair of boots on and a hat older than Methuselah on the top of his head. VM, where did that hat come from?
Got it.
Previous work. Yeah. Okay, now it's a really scruffy thing, but it does look like it's very well used and very appropriate for his work as one of the world's finest cameramen.
Very comfy.
Very comfy. Good. X-Ranger, you're absolutely correct that when I lose my handheld radio, I will need something to point with. It's very convenient having this, and I mean, like I said yesterday, it's good for beating cameramen if they misbehave or eat too much on drive. No, I promise I won't hit you, don't worry.
Well, I might. Can't feel pain.
Okay. Cameramen apparently can't feel pain, so that's good. But X-Ranger, I will be most pleased to have proper communications back rather than this pointy thing, although it is quite fun to poke at things. Makes me feel authoritative. Good morning.
Morning.
How are you? Good. Any luck this morning? Okay, good. Okay. Bye-bye. Enjoy your drive. That was a fellow from Nkoro Lodge. His name, for the life of me, I cannot remember. It's not because he is a forgettable person, it's because I am forgetful. I've met him once before, racking my brains now. Now, Nkoro Lodge is one of the game lodges that is around here, obviously, otherwise he wouldn't be here. And it's just further to the east. It's the most easterly lodge before you hit the Great Kruger National Park. And just in case you were wondering, when I say that we hit the boundary of the Kruger National Park, there is no fence between us and the Kruger, so we are part of what's known as the Greater Kruger National Park. And the Kruger National Park itself is also not fenced out of the Gomerezou Reserve in Zimbabwe and the Limpopo, I think it's called the Limpopo National Park in Mozambique. Together they make up the Greater Limpopo Transfrontier Park, and that is 8 million acres of, well, I mean, almost pristine wildlife land, shall we say. The reason I say it's perhaps not as pristine as it might be is because people have been around this area for a long time. Now that's not a bad thing. So I'm not saying that it's a bad thing that it's not what we might call pristine wilderness, because I believe that people are part of the wilderness, and the rich human history of this area certainly adds immeasurably to the character and the enjoyment that I get out of it. The distressing thing, of course, about the Nkoro driver coming this way is that he's come all the way from the east, and therefore there are probably no lion tracks coming onto the reserve from the east. Well, certainly from the south. So an excellent query here from Mars in Tucson, Arizona. Mars, you would like to know why it is that those males would be refusing the female, given the fact that their sole purpose of taking over a territory seemingly is so that they can increase their chances of mating and therefore propagate their genes and so fulfill their evolutionary role in the world. Well, Mars, I think it's because they are still a state of great adrenaline hype, because they're still taking over this territory, and I think their age combined with that has a large degree of, I think that's why certainly why they've been killing some of the lionesses, and so they don't really know how to react to this young, or she's not that young, to this lioness who is making advances to them. And you know, this is the first time they would have experienced something like this, a female who's perhaps coming into what we call a false estrus. So I doubt she's coming into a full estrus cycle. I don't think she's going to ovulate. But she will try and cement a bond by mating with them. And some of their behavior has just been very anomalous, Mars. You know, they've killed lionesses. That's not apparently that unusual, but it's not necessarily explicable from an evolutionary point of view. There are some buffalo just up ahead here. We're going to drive off road and have a look at them. But when one is not looking at lions, one needs to look at buffalo. So Mars, I hope that answers your question. I find it quite unsatisfactory as an answer, but I quite find the explanation of why the Birmingham boys have behaved like they have slightly unsatisfactory. So I'm still thinking about it, still researching it, and still trying to find out exactly what the story is. What a large herd of bachelors here, a monastery of celibate bulls. Not to say that one doesn't occur sometimes. So normally what will happen is that whoever, just listening to the radio quickly, so Terry, normally what happens is that whoever starts to mate first in a coalition will continue to mate until the estrus cycle is complete. That's normally what happens. They don't fight over mating opportunities. That said, there is a hierarchy based purely on size and possibly also on testosterone levels. So what I would suspect, and I don't know this for sure because I haven't been here for a very long time, is that the mating that has taken place with the Matimba males, for example, where one is very clearly bigger than the other, and he's also got a much darker mane, indicating a higher level of testosterone and therefore possibly aggression and dominance. And what that does mean, Terry, is that I think he's done more mating than the other one. So Hairy Belly of the Matimbas has probably mated more than Ginger has. I don't think that Ginger has excluded himself from any kind of mating, but you'll probably find that there is a sort of semi-dominance about the mating. But I don't think that they definitely don't fight over mating opportunities, which is quite interesting. And there doesn't seem to be cases of multi-paternity, as far as we know, where different cubs in a litter have different fathers, because what tends to happen is that a lioness will mate with a male, and until that estrus cycle is finished, she won't mate with another one. Unlike the leopards, which tend to mate with a few males during an estrus cycle. Now you can hear all of the red-billed oxpeckers calling frantically. And if you're walking in the bush, that is a sound that you listen to very carefully, because obviously it does indicate the presence of something like a buffalo, indicates the presence of a rhino, or not an elephant, because of course the elephants don't tolerate oxpeckers, and we're not really sure why, but it could also indicate an impala or something like that. But absolutely you need to be very careful when you hear that sound and you're on foot. Lovely. Look at this, I think you're on that buffalo there, with the big boss on his head. You know, the buffalo here, you can see the difference in their horns, and you can see the one there has got a big helmet on top of his head. That helmet from which the horns grow is called a boss, and the boss is a great skull protector. It's a skull cap, and it takes the brunt of any fighting that occurs between the bulls, and they do fight quite a lot when they're in the herd. The aggression displayed over mating opportunities is well, I mean, it's quite terrifying at times. And then compare it now with this old bull here, who looks to be almost on his last legs. You can see his boss has been worn away from years of fighting and scratching his head on the base, or often of combretum trees, which gives them that sort of red colour on the top of the bust. Look at him, he's a wizened old boy, isn't he?
He's got a big injury on his back.
And he's got a nasty injury, yes.
Yeah.
Well spotted, Graham. Now look at the oxpeckers. Anybody who thinks an oxpecker is purely helpful towards an animal, that their relationship is symbiotic entirely, there you can see it is clearly not. That oxpecker will purposely keep that wound open so that he can eat out the blood from the wound. They eat ticks not because they like ticks, they eat ticks because they like the blood that the ticks have sucked out of the buffalo. Now, look at his undercarriage there. The oxpeckers are also having a go at his undercarriage, which, if he takes a step forward, unfortunately it's hidden a bit by the only stick in sight. I'm just going to push the clutch in and see if we're not going to move. But his testicles are quite badly injured. Let's see if he moves his foot. Ooh. Wonderful. This is a stunning sighting. Well done. I'm just going to move very slightly back because it's actually quite interesting to see the injury there. There you go. You can see that. Can you see that oxpecker is now feeding on an injury on the scrotum, which see that his scrotum is almost atrophied, and that's a function of his age. That's not uncommon at all. I know he is not in particularly good shape. You can see some of his bones sticking out from a tough dry season. But you know, as kind of enfeebled as he looks, he will be a formidable opponent to a pride of lions that came through here. And of course, he would also have the defensive help of this group of monks with him. Beautiful. Now, that one walking across picture is just clearly in a better state. He's got much more muscle mass on him. And they all seem to be getting up now. Seems to be a general movement to the south. I wonder if they look like they smelt something to the north. Their noses are up. This is quite interesting. Oh, there. It's a little group of warthogs. Just see them. I'll get my head out of the way. And they're just through there. Can you see them, Jim?
A little bit.
A little bit. They're just walking through there, and I'm sure they gave these buffalo a little bit of a fright. We can't see them. They're just a little sounder of warthogs walking down east, possibly towards the twin dams. I suspect that's what they're doing. So they're just getting up to have a bit of a move around the place. They'll probably head towards the south there. They'll get some mud down at Twin Dams. We're not too far from there. And there's also some water not too far across the southern boundary here. And a question about oxpeckers, which we were watching, and you can see them, they do keep wounds open. They do keep wounds open. They do enjoy, what can I say, that they do enjoy bits and pieces of sort of exposed flesh. That's what they like. And Anna Marie, you want to know, are they the only birds that will eat blood in South Africa? Well, no, of course not. The raptors all eat a lot of blood. They all eat a lot of meat. So the birds of prey eat a lot of meat. Lots of birds will eat carrion if they can. So something like a grey-headed bushshrike, for example, will not, while it may not go and sit at a carcass, will definitely sample bits and pieces of dead stuff if they can find it. But they're definitely the only birds that will sit on an animal and keep the wound open. They're the only birds that are tolerated on the backs of animals, except perhaps the odd heron, who I've seen standing on hippos' backs in the water. But otherwise, they're the only birds that have evolved the strategy of moving with animals. And I mean, there is an element of symbiosis to the relationship. They do definitely clean off ticks, and I think that makes a big difference to disease control. The caveat, of course, or the payment that the animals have to pay is that if there is an injury, these oxpeckers will keep it open. They probably also do clean it out a bit, but I do think they keep it open. And fascinating birds, and fascinating kind of relationship that has developed between them. You can hear them calling. There's a lilac-breasted roller just behind us. He's just gone flying into the tree there. And they're all shouting and screaming at each other now as the spring approaches, trying to attract females, having territorial disputes. I wonder if they don't have a nest in this tree. There we go. And then the question, of course, is begged as to what caused that injury to the buffalo. Rena, you wanted to know that, and I don't know what it was. I don't think it was a lion. No. A lion injury on an animal tends to be something in the way of a kill scrape. An animal that escapes from the attentions of a lion will normally have kind of deep claw marks down the back. They're running away, a lion will jump on the back and stick the claws into the back end, and if it gets kicked off, there will normally be some ripping. Now that injury on the buffalo, of course, is in the sort of shoulder region, just behind the shoulder, and I don't know what would have made that. It could well have just been some kind of an ectoparasite that managed to get through the skin like a tick bite or a whole host of ticks. Maybe a thorn that have initially opened it up, but I don't think it was a lion. May even have been another buffalo, you know, if they were having a bit of a fight and he got hooked there. It's quite possible that it was another buffalo. Right, we're going to drive off along here, gently towards Twin Dams, and see if we can't get another view of them, otherwise we'll carry on. Also on the topic of the oxpeckers and healing and whether they're making the problem worse or making it better, Virginia and Kentucky you would like to know, is it possible that they could contribute to an earlier death, the oxpeckers, by keeping the injury open? Virginia, I think they do have a certain function for cleaning, and I don't think that they would. I think that they do keep the infection down, probably, in those injured pieces. Ooh, there's a nasty noise coming from Wendy. Anyway, if the arm catches fire, that's because there's a noise in the back of the car. What's interesting, Virginia, is that I think what they do is probably keep the wounds free of bacteria, but they don't necessarily let them heal. So I don't think that they cause further infection, and certainly there's no evidence to suggest that they would ever make a wound bigger to the extent that it really is a problem. There's an old boy walking past us. Marvellous. Alright, I think we should leave these fellows. They are, of course, VM's favourite animal, aren't they, VM?
Love this.
We'll pop across to Jamie. She's got some tracks to show you, and we'll head on and see what else we can find, and see you just a little bit later.
Welcome back. And although we still haven't picked up on Madiba's tracks, I do have a track that I want to pose to you as a trick quiz. It's a very, very difficult one, so I'll be incredibly impressed if you get it right, although I have lots of faith in our viewers. I know that lots of you have been watching for a long time. Let's see if we can catch you out with this one. I'm going to have a look there. I'm going to hop out and just show you exactly what it is, just because it is so indistinct in the sand. Let me grab a stick quickly. So the track we're looking at is this one here, and this is a really, really tricky one. I'll tell you what you're looking at. It's very indistinct. 1 foot here, 1 foot here, 1 foot here, and 1 foot here. And if you get this, I will be very impressed. I will tell you that back foot, front feet. And if you can picture what it is that moves like that, then you'll get it straight away. And the distance between tracks, probably about this far. So from the front of the last track to the back of the first track here, that's the distance that the animal is covering. Let's see if you guys can guess what it is. It'll be very interesting to see. Now I'm still checking around for young Madiba. I'm very curious to see what he's been up to. And James tells me that yesterday he had his tracks all the way up north towards Gowrie Gate. And my tactic this morning has been to go all the way south along the sort of western boundary of Djuma and check in that direction. And the reason I'm doing that is because these are areas that are familiar to him. The question, of course, that we have to ask ourselves is, where is Shadow, and has she come to collect him and take him to a kill? And if that's so, where have those two disappeared off to? Anyway, for that mystery track, which I will be very, very impressed if you get, you can send those answers through to #SafariLive on Twitter, or you can email through to questions@WildEarthTV. Let's see if we haven't caught you out on this one. Now, Brian and myself, after we lost those hyena disappearing south into the block, we did try to follow up. We looped all the way around to see if maybe they'd popped out of Treehouse Dam for a drink. Just really curious as to what goes through their heads And as I said before, we know so little about hyenas in comparison to the way that we know the individual lions and the individual leopards. And that sighting was a perfect example of why that is. It is so difficult to really stay with hyenas as they move through, unless you happen to find them sleeping in the bush, which doesn't happen often. Or, of course, the best way is to go across to a den site. And unfortunately, the den site that was on Gallagher Shortcut has moved, and we've yet to relocate it. It's going to require quite a bit of time on foot. And Monica, you were wondering why it is that hyenas move their den sites the way that they do. And there's a couple of reasons. The largest one is that if you get a group of animals like that, in terms of hygiene, I'm trying to put this delicately, but let's just say that they're not the cleanest of creatures. They also bring bits of the kill back, especially with older cubs, as those dens do have. So a chance for those cubs to start supplementing their diet with solid food. You can imagine the parasite, the fly build-up, the maggot build-up. It just gets to the point where it is no longer sanitary living conditions for them, and it's time to move. It also becomes very pungent, I'm not joking about that, which of course increases their chance of other predators like lions attracting their attention, which they don't want to do. They want to stay under the radar. And that's the main reason. But then things can happen, sort of once-off events. Maybe an elephant herd comes through and pushes over trees over their access path, or one of the tunnels collapses, or there's a pride of lions just very close to the den, and they just decide, you know what, it's safer to move. And they'll reuse den sites over and over, and they'll have a sort of set system of rotation, but you never know exactly which den they're going to go to. Now apparently when the den was moved, luckily one of the guides actually saw the mother moving the youngest cub, so the tiny little cub, and Aubrey saw him moving west from that den site. So somewhere around Aubrey's Road or Sandy Patch, there's a good chance that the den is there. Once again, the viewers never failed to surprise me. So, Marianne, Rava, Raggedy Ann, you all got it right. That track quiz of mine, it was indeed a hare. It was a scrub hare. And that was a really tricky one, so well done, because I didn't expect that. I well, at least expected you to have to think about it for a little bit longer. Very, very good. And what typically is a giveaway with hare tracks is the biggest giveaway is actually the shape of the track. So although you can never really see the distinct footprints too well, they actually make an L shape. So the front feet pack together in the front, so the ones that we saw, and then the side track, so it makes an L, if I can describe it like that. I cannot think, that's how I was taught, but that is the animal that we were looking at. It's a bit shady, but that is the scrub hare. And a great way, it's important to know that track, and I'll tell you why. We're not going to go following scrub hares and trying to track them down wherever they're sleeping, although that in itself might be an interesting exercise. But it's really, really important in terms of aging other tracks that you see. So if you've got lion tracks along a road, and then you've got scrub hare tracks over them, then you know that your lion tracks are not from early in the morning, they must have been from sometime in the night, because scrub hares are nocturnal. So that's why, although we're not necessarily focusing on tracking the animals per se, it's why we need to know what they are, because we need to know their habits and the times that they are active in order to age tracks. So that is why that question was important. It's not to do with necessarily following the animal all the time. There are a couple of birds calling. There is the work harder sound of the Cape turtle dove. There's a magpie shrike calling, and then that trill that you were hearing, the brrrr, that is a crested barbet. Cool thing I learned about crested barbets, just while I'm thinking about it, that trill that they make, the brrrr, they've got a split in their larynx. So what they can do, where it splits, I'm just trying to look for him. Oh, there he is. Got him there. Let me shift around so that Brian can show it to you. Stop there. Listen to him go. And that's the trilling noise that you were hearing. See if he calls again, and then I'll finish my explanation. Now, this is not the best looking crested barbet I've ever seen. He's a bit scruffy, a little bit dirty. Might be puffed up because it's cold, although I don't think so. It's not terribly chilly. But to finish this random piece of information that I read up on the other day and then completely forgot to share with the viewers, they have a split in their larynx. So what they can do is they can blow air out and produce that trill whilst still breathing in. Similar to the technique that, say, the didgeridoo players utilize, that sort of, what's it called, circular breathing. They can circular breathe, so they can sustain that trill for much more extended periods of time. So it's not just a lung full of air producing that sound. Here's the second one. Looks to me in slightly better shape. Now it is breeding season for them, and a tree like this knobthorn, this dead knobthorn that they're in, could make for a perfect nesting site if there's a nice hole somewhere in the area. And in a similar way to woodpeckers, they can actually excavate their own holes. So they'll start where there's a bit of a basis for it, and they'll peck their way and bore their way until they have a nice nest site. And this is more than likely a mated pair. Very nice. Definitely worth stopping and seeing what's out there and just listening to the sounds around us. Beautiful birds. And it's always fascinating to me. There's two directions that bird colors go in, and it's essentially completely split. They are either completely cryptic and sort of brownish in color and camouflaged and hide away in the grass, or they take these vibrant splashes of color, whether it's the barbets, the crested or the black-collared barbets, and the kingfishers or the rollers. They've all approached it as a reproductive strategy to be really, really brightly colored. And nobody can fully explain to me, and I don't fully know why, you get that split in adaptations, but it is fascinating to think about. Off he goes. Now, I'm sure that they know where the leopard is. Unfortunately, I cannot interpret barbet trills, but we never know. He's probably somewhere around Triple M. That's his comfort zone. It's where he knows. And especially if Mom hasn't been around, then that is where he's going to hang out. But if Mom is around Simbambili, then she might have come back to collect him to cross Triple M. And I think that's our plan. Let's go and check out what's happening there. I also want to see if I can get an update from the guides at Arathusa as to which lions we're calling this morning. And of course, for those of you who were watching yesterday's sunrise and sunset safari, in terms of just chatting about leopard updates, I want to hear if Hotile has finally... My word, that was a surprise. Just stop for a moment. That's, I think, the first time I've ever seen a big group of male kudu out in the open like that. I know that it's right into the sun, but I don't want to startle them. And we've actually got the most spectacular bulls. Now, Brian, I don't know if you're with Andrew in terms of naming the kudu Zeus, but I believe that there is, the one of them is Zeus. He's got very, very wide set horns. He's tucked behind the guari bush now. What I'm going to do, because these boys are so spectacularly beautiful, and it's nice to see a group of male kudu like this out in the open. You don't always get to see them. I'm going to just shift around, see if we can get the light on the other side of them. Good. Oh, look at that. How beautiful is that with the new fresh green grass? And to think that just over 2 weeks ago, there was no green at all. It was completely brown and dusty. And obviously for these kudu, these brand new shoots are just too good an opportunity to miss out on. Oh, beautiful. And these are really, at least the bull in the front that we're looking at to the left, sort of the left of your screen, that is a very, very mature kudu bull. Okay, I think let's try and loop them and see if we can get the sun on the other side so we can really get a look at them in detail and have a look at their horns. Sure. There is so much beauty around here, and it's around every corner. And that's the wonderful thing about these live safaris, is that you never know what you're going to find. From a crested barbet to there's about 5 male kudu, and 3 of them are very mature. They've reached those sort of 3 twists in the horns. I'm going to take quite a wide berth just so that we don't spook them in any way, although they are very relaxed. But I'm going to just loop around the other side. Stop here so that we don't spook them. The 2 young males are actually play fighting, practicing the skills that they need to one day compete for females. I'm going to be quiet for a moment. Oh, I was going to let you listen to the sounds of their horns. They've decided to stop. Now, play fights like these are completely relaxed. There's no danger to the individuals. But for the older kudus, when they do start competing for mating opportunities, they can actually get stuck together, and I've heard of lots and lots of cases where they've been linked together by those spiral horns and they actually can't get out of it. And there have been lots of recorded cases of kudu dying in this way. And what I want to do now, since they have moved into thicker bush, is to just try and get a view of Zeus. Because I have a theory that his wide set horns are probably a massive advantage. or possibly a disadvantage. In terms of getting stuck, he probably wouldn't, but he also then leaves himself vulnerable to attack in the middle of his head, or to damage to the middle of his head. He's just coming through. Let's get him in a nice position so we can see him. Zeus is unique to me because I've never seen a kudu with such wide set horns. Let's cross the road. He's got a spectacular set of horns. They're really, really long, but they're almost, I don't know, they're almost stretched out in a strange way. And that's just a genetic fluke. Got to just stop here for the moment, because if I spook the one in front of us, the rest of them will spook as well. You can see him looking off intently, and I'm going to show you why in a moment. I haven't spotted a predator. They just spotted a wildebeest who moved in. Still want to get you that nice view of Zeus, for those of you who haven't seen him before. I think he's going to carry on into the block. There we go, that's him, isn't it? Yes. There we go. That is the very dignified Zeus with his massive set of horns. Just with those ivory tips at the top, but they start to go a little bit pale with age. Now, those massive horns, Jennifer, you were wondering whether or not it's true that the kudu horns never stop growing. And that is absolutely correct. They will continue to grow throughout their lives. It will, obviously the fastest time of growth is in their first 4 years as the horns develop. And then it slowly decreases in growing speed, but they will continue to grow throughout their lives, just like elephant tusks. And that is bone. So just imagine how heavy those horns must be, and that's why those males have that thick, powerfully set neck, because there's probably, I'm just thinking about it, it's probably 6 or 7 kilograms on their, in terms of their whole skull and the weight of those horns, and they're long. So you can imagine the strength that's needed to even just dip your head down with all of that weight. Solid bone with a keratin sheath around it. Really are quite incredible when you think of them like that. And I have heard, although it's not confirmed, it's a theory that I've heard about, that male kudus, if they do die a natural death, it is because they are struggling to actually maintain the weight of their horns as they start to reach their old age. So really, really interesting. I want to just loop backwards. Now that our kudu have moved off into the gori bushes, let's see if we can get that wildebeest as well. He seems to have settled down. Where's he gone? Is he still here? Oh, there he goes. This is one lone male wildebeest, and I think he's actually out and about patrolling his territory. unlike the kudu, he's feeling just a little bit shy. Oh, he stopped there. Oh, awesome. Now that, what he just did there, is not... Let's just have a look at it. Because he looks very young. In fact, that's interesting. I was going to say that it was a male. I actually think it might be a female. That's more unusual. Or it could be a very young male who has not fully developed yet. Let's see if we can get a bit of a closer look. Because that movement that the wildebeest was doing where it was digging, it's not actually digging, it's scent marking. They have glands between their hooves, between the two halves of their hoof, on their front feet and their back feet. They can use them to scent mark by scraping. And typically in wildebeest tracks, interestingly enough, you can tell male from female tracks just purely from that scraping action. I think this might just be a young male. It must be. It would be very, very unusual to have a female moving through an area and scraping around. But feeling very camera shy this morning, this wildebeest. Now I think our wildebeest friend is going to continue moving away from us. So I'll stop here and give you one last view as he walks away. And very, very nice to see. But apparently James has something exciting to show you. He has some ellies for you. And I think we're going to head across to him. I will continue my search for young Madiba and be back with you a little bit later.
Hello everybody, welcome back to Wendy. Behind me is an elephant and a whole herd of them sitting down, grazing through this drainage line area here where the vegetation is green and verdant and delicious. Well, not really just yet. It is turning that way after the wonderful rains we had last week. Looks like a fairly spread out herd. Probably the same one. Brent had a big one around here 2 days ago. And I think that's the same lot. And I mean, they really are extensively spread out. Liam, can you perhaps give a wide-ranging view of them all dotted about the place there? I can see one at least sort of 300 meters away, well, 200 meters away, across the dip. Can you see that?
Yeah, very far.
Too far?
No, no.
Okay. And they're very relaxed, which is wonderful, just enjoying what is turning into quite a warm morning. There you can see them moving little grey or large grey shapes, should I say, through the vegetation. Very comfortable to be split up and spread out amongst this area. Now let's see what this chap in front of us, not that one, is eating. I suspect that what he's eating are little pieces of Xerophyta retinervis, or the baboon's tail. I'm just going to retrieve my powerful binoculars. Now he's eating strychnos. Look at that, isn't that wonderful? We've seen a lot of the strychnos eating in the last few days. And you can see how crucial an elephant is to the health of an area like this, because they do a little bit of bush clearing and they maintain the area in a state of well, relative clearing, I suppose. I think she's also eating those little, you can see the green shoots all over the place. Yeah, she is selecting for them, eating those, what they call baboon's tails or Xerophyta retinervis, one of the first flushes of green that we get after the rain. She's also ignoring a couple of wild flowers that there are just below the trunk. It's a very, very peaceful sighting here. Ooh, what a crossy. Can you hear that? The wonderful sound of a bearded woodpecker doing a territorial call. Wonderful to hear. So lovely, it echoes down the drainage line. Look at this now, wonderfully confiding elephant, eating the new leaves of the baboon's tail. This is fantastic. She's gonna get so close we're gonna run out of space here. Wonderful. Now some of those baboon's tails of course are sorry about that everyone. Some of the baboon's tails are flowering. They're the first flowers of the season. And you can see how close he or she is. I think this is a young bull, no more than 1 meter away from the car. This is so special. Hi. Had a bit of a smell and didn't like what he smelt. That's very typical young bull behavior. Comes up to investigate, then shows his size by opening his ears out, and then when we don't react by running away in terror, he walks away in slight shame. That was really spectacular. Gee whiz. So these will be the young bulls on the fringes of the herd. They're the ones who are just trying to assert a little bit of independence from their parents or from their mothers and aunts and sisters. I'm going to sneak a little bit forward into this clearing then. Let's just see if we can't get a slightly better view of them coming through the drainage line here. I don't want to make a big noise, that's all. So they've been so generous with their relaxation around us. Lovely. Sue in San Francisco, you've obviously been really impressed by the way these elephants are using their trunks to pull out individual leaves from these baboon's tail plants, and it is really impressive. And as you correctly ask, does it take some time for them to learn to use their trunks? Absolutely it does, Sue. You know, There are over 100,000 different muscle and nerve fibers in a trunk like that, and they are not easy to learn to use. So an elephant is born with a trunk that is almost useless. And by the time they wean, at around 2 years, they're able to use the trunk pretty dexterously. Now, I think it takes another year or so before it's quite as functional as the one in front of us is. It's just scratching his bottom there on the tree. That is so cool. So Sue, one of the interesting things is that when a calf is born, the trunk is almost useless. You know, it just flops about the place, and it's shorter than it is on an adult proportionately, and that's so that they don't stand on it. They've got so little control over it that they walk all over it and damage it quite badly if it was any longer. And so, because of the lack of control, it's slightly shorter. It doesn't touch the ground when they're born, when they're little calves. I'm just going to roll slightly forward. Obviously, we cannot follow them through here.